Imagine trying to love someone who constantly misunderstands you, disrespects you, or even wounds you, and every attempt you make feels like pouring water into a bucket with holes. Have you ever been there? Have you ever asked yourself, how can I keep loving when it hurts this much? That's the very question we're going to wrestle with today, because the strength to love when it's hard is not found in our emotions. It's found in something far greater. Imagine trying to love someone who constantly misunderstands you, disrespects you, or even wounds you, and every attempt you make feels like pouring water into a bucket with holes. Have you ever been there? Have you ever asked yourself, how can I keep loving when it hurts this much? That's the very question we're going to wrestle with today, because the strength to love when it's hard is not found in our emotions. It's found in something far greater. When we face the challenge of loving someone who has wounded us, disrespected us, or failed us, the first thing we often discover is that our own strength runs out quickly. At the beginning, we might muster up the will to try again, to extend patience, to offer forgiveness. But after repeated disappointments, after constant tension, after one too many broken promises, the energy to keep loving feels depleted. It is in those moments that we realize something critical: love cannot be sustained on human willpower alone. Our own resources are too limited, too fragile, too easily shaken. The truth is, when love gets hard, our hearts need a source greater than ourselves to keep going. Think of it like trying to run a marathon without water. You might start with enthusiasm, determination, and energy, but sooner or later, without replenishment, your strength will fail. Love works the same way. When we rely only on our emotions or our personal determination, eventually the well runs dry. Anger starts to seep in, bitterness grows, and we find ourselves unable to do what we once thought we could. That is why real love, love that lasts through the fire, love that endures through betrayal, love that holds on when everything screams to let go, must be connected to a deeper power. It cannot be rooted only in what we feel, but a strength that transcends our feelings. This is why so many relationships collapse when hardships come. Couples promise to stay together, friends vow to remain close, families pledge to remain united, but when offenses pile up and patience wears thin, human strength proves insufficient. That does not mean those promises were insincere. It simply means they were never designed to be kept on human strength alone. Real, enduring love requires plugging into a source beyond ourselves, one that does not waver when emotions shift and circumstances change. When you draw from that deeper source, something remarkable happens. You find the ability to forgive when forgiveness doesn't make sense. You find patience when your mind says you should have run out of it long ago. You find compassion for someone who, by all natural measures, doesn't deserve it. That kind of strength does not come from gritting your teeth and forcing yourself to be nice. It comes from surrendering your weakness and letting a greater power work through you. That is the difference between natural love and supernatural love. Natural love has limits. It stops when pain grows too sharp, when the offense becomes too great, or when the cost feels too high. Supernatural love, however, is like an unending river that keeps flowing even when the surface of your life feels dry. It replenishes your spirit, refreshes your heart, and gives you the capacity to keep moving forward when you thought you had nothing left to give. It is in those moments of surrender that you realize love was never meant to be about how strong you are, but about how much you are willing to draw strength from the one who never runs out. ChatGPT said love in its truest form is not something that simply happens as a reaction to how others treat us. It is not dependent on whether someone smiles at us, respects us, or gives us what we want. Many people confuse love with a feeling that arises when everything is going well, when emotions line up with circumstances. But love, real love, is far deeper than that. Love is a choice, a deliberate decision to act with kindness, compassion, and forgiveness even when those feelings are absent. It is a commitment that says, I will give even if nothing comes back to me. I will extend grace even when it is not earned. I will choose love not because it is deserved, but because it is right. This truth cuts against the grain of our natural instincts. By nature, we want to give based on what we receive. If someone treats us well, we treat them well. If someone honors us, we honor them. But when someone hurts us, disrespects us, or ignores us, our instinct is to withdraw or retaliate. The human heart likes to operate on fairness and reciprocity. Yet love asks for more. Love dares to step into the uncomfortable place of giving when nothing has been given in return. It insists that the worth of another person is not measured by how they treat us, but by the decision we make to show them dignity regardless of their actions. Consider for a moment how relationships would look if love were only a reaction. Marriages would crumble the moment one partner failed to meet the other's expectations. Friendships would dissolve after the first betrayal. Families would split apart the moment disagreements grew sharp. Communities would be forever fractured because no one would be willing to take the first step toward reconciliation. The world would be left in constant cycles of revenge and brokenness. Reactionary love cannot heal wounds, it can only prolong them. But when love is a decision, when it is rooted in intentional choice, it has the power to break those cycles and plant seeds of healing where bitterness once grew. Deciding to love, even when the other person doesn't deserve it, is one of the hardest things you will ever do. But it is also one of the most transformative. It doesn't mean allowing yourself to be mistreated without boundaries. It doesn't mean ignoring truth or sweeping pain under the rug. It means that your response is not dictated by someone else's failure. It means you refuse to let someone else's actions control who you are becoming. When you choose love, you reclaim your power. You declare that your identity is not built on reaction but on conviction. Over time, making the decision to love in difficult situations reshapes you. It strengthens your character, softens your heart, and trains you to see people not just for what they have done, but for who they can become. That is why love as a decision is so powerful. It elevates us above the limitations of our circumstances and aligns us with a greater purpose that goes beyond what is fair, convenient, or easy. Natural love is limited because it relies on emotions, circumstances, and human capacity. It thrives when everything feels right, when affection is mutual, when the relationship is rewarding. But as soon as the situation changes, natural love begins to fade. When someone fails us, when arguments erupt, when disappointment sets in, the natural inclination is to pull away and stop giving. It is like a reservoir that empties quickly when demands become too heavy. Natural love is conditional, tied to how others behave and how we feel in the moment. And because feelings fluctuate and people often fall short, natural love runs dry faster than we expect. Supernatural love, however, is entirely different. It is not tied to moods or circumstances. It flows from a source that never runs out, a river that keeps moving even when everything else in life feels stagnant or broken. This love has no conditions. It does not wait for someone to earn it or deserve it. It keeps showing up, keeps forgiving, keeps serving, and keeps believing in the possibility of change. It is not blind to wrongs, but it refuses to let wrongs define the story. Supernatural love endures not because the other person always gives back, but because the well it draws from is infinite. This is the kind of love that sustains marriages through storms. A husband or wife may not always meet expectations. Harsh words might be spoken, tempers might flare, and moments of distance may arise. Natural love would say, "I am done giving because you have failed me." But supernatural love responds, "Even in your weakness, I will choose to keep standing with you." That choice does not ignore pain, but it commits to walk through it instead of walking away. Over time, this love becomes the glue that keeps two imperfect people moving toward healing and restoration. The same is true in families. Parents may feel discouraged when children rebel or refuse guidance. Children may feel wounded by the shortcomings of their parents. Natural love reacts with frustration, distance, or resentment. But supernatural love perseveres. It gives patience when patience is exhausted, compassion when mistakes repeat, and forgiveness when hearts are slow to change. It strengthens the bonds that would otherwise break under pressure, turning what could have been permanent division into opportunities for reconciliation. Communities, too, are transformed by this kind of love. Where there is hatred, prejudice, or division, natural love cannot survive for long. It quickly withers when offenses multiply, but supernatural love crosses barriers, seeks understanding, and builds bridges where walls once stood. It looks at those who are different, even those who oppose us, and says, "I will not let hate dictate how I see you or treat you." That is how wounds are healed and unity is restored. Natural love will always reach its limit, but supernatural love has no end. It goes further, digs deeper, and lasts longer than anything we could produce on our own. It is the love that not only sustains relationships but transforms them, turning brokenness into beauty and division into unity. Love is often misunderstood as weakness, as if showing kindness, extending forgiveness, or holding on to patience makes a person fragile or naive. But true love is anything but weak. Real love requires strength. Strength to stay calm when anger burns, strength to forgive when bitterness feels justified, strength to keep reaching out when rejection seems constant. Love is not about being passive or pretending everything is fine. It is about choosing the higher road when the lower one looks far more tempting. It is about having power in your hands to retaliate and still refusing to use it because you know there is a greater way. That is not weakness. That is strength under control. Anyone can lash out when provoked. Anyone can carry a grudge when they've been wronged. Anyone can cut people off and walk away when relationships become hard. That does not take courage. It simply takes instinct. But it takes enormous courage to pause in the heat of conflict, to swallow pride, and to respond with grace when everything in you wants to respond with anger. That is why love is one of the truest measures of inner strength. It requires self-discipline, humility, and a willingness to value peace more than payback. Think about the strength it takes to forgive someone who has hurt you. Forgiveness does not erase the pain or minimize the wrong, but it frees you from the prison of resentment. To forgive is to release someone from a debt they cannot repay. That decision demands more strength than holding on to bitterness ever will. Bitterness may feel powerful in the moment, but it weakens the soul over time, draining energy and joy. Forgiveness, though costly, brings healing, peace, and freedom. That is the power of love in action. It restores what anger and vengeance would only destroy. Love also requires strength to endure when circumstances do not change as quickly as we want. Patience is not passive. It is an active commitment to wait without giving up. When you continue showing kindness to someone who does not yet appreciate it, when you keep believing in someone who has not yet lived up to their potential, when you choose to stand by someone others have abandoned, that is not weakness. It is evidence of extraordinary strength. It is choosing long-term growth over short-term satisfaction, character over convenience. Even in confrontation, love shows its strength. Love is not blind acceptance or silent tolerance of wrongdoing. Sometimes the most loving act is to speak hard truth, to set boundaries, or to call someone higher. But the strength of love ensures that truth is spoken not from anger, but from a desire to build rather than break, to heal rather than harm. Love refuses to allow wrong to continue unchecked, but it also refuses to let correction turn into condemnation. That balance requires wisdom, patience, and incredible inner fortitude. True love is not weakness dressed up in gentle words. It is a force that demands courage, discipline, and resilience. It challenges us to rise above instinct, to silence pride, and to extend grace even when it feels undeserved. That is why love is not a fragile thing, but a display of the greatest strength a person can possess. Love is often misunderstood as tolerance without boundaries, as if to love someone means to excuse their wrongs or pretend hurtful actions don't matter. But real love is not blind to truth. Genuine love does not enable destructive behavior or ignore the damage that sin, selfishness, or carelessness can cause. Instead, it has the courage to confront when necessary, to draw lines where safety and dignity must be preserved, and to speak truth even when it risks discomfort. Love without truth becomes shallow sentiment, but truth without love becomes harsh judgment. The power lies in holding both together, standing for what is right, while still refusing to let hate dictate the response. When someone mistreats us, natural instinct pushes us toward extremes. On one end, we may withdraw completely, cutting the person off with bitterness and refusing to ever look back. On the other end, we may tolerate behavior that wounds us repeatedly, convincing ourselves that staying silent is the loving thing to do. But both extremes miss the heart of true love. Walking away in bitterness keeps wounds open, while ignoring wrongs only deepens the harm. Love takes the harder, higher road of addressing the wrong without surrendering to resentment. It says, I care too much to let you continue in this pattern, but I also refuse to let your behavior define who I become. This balance can be seen in the way parents raise their children. A loving parent does not let a child do whatever they want without correction. To ignore disobedience or dangerous behavior would not be love at all. It would be neglect. But a wise parent also corrects in a spirit of care, not cruelty. The goal is not to crush, but to guide, not to condemn, but to shape. That is love in action, truth delivered with compassion. The same principle applies to every relationship, whether in families, friendships, marriages, or communities. Boundaries are another expression of this balance. Many people misunderstand boundaries as unloving, but in reality, they are one of the clearest signs of healthy love. Boundaries communicate value for yourself and for others. They say, I will treat you with respect, and I expect the same in return. When someone repeatedly crosses those lines, love does not mean allowing them to continue unchecked. Love can forgive while still saying, this behavior is not acceptable, and I will not allow it to destroy me or this relationship. Setting boundaries does not diminish love, it protects it. At the same time, love refuses to hand hatred the final word. Even when truth must be spoken firmly, love does not close the door to reconciliation. It does not plot revenge, seek to humiliate, or strip away dignity. Instead, it leaves room for redemption, for the possibility of healing, for the chance that people can change. Love may need to step back for a season, but it does not let bitterness become permanent. That is why real love is both fierce and gentle. Fierce in its commitment to truth, gentle in its commitment to hope. When we choose to love in difficult circumstances, something begins to shift inside of us. At first, The act may feel unnatural, even forced, because our emotions are not aligned with our actions. Yet over time, those choices shape us in ways we could not have imagined. Love given in the hardest places does more than affect the person receiving it. It transforms the one who gives it. By continuing to love when it feels undeserved or unreciprocated, we are stretched beyond the limits of our pride and comfort. That stretching may feel uncomfortable, but it enlarges the capacity of our hearts. We discover patience we never thought we had, endurance we did not know we could carry, and resilience that only comes from walking through struggle. Bitterness and anger may feel powerful in the moment, but they actually shrink the soul. They make us smaller, more rigid, less able to experience joy. Love does the opposite. Even when it costs us, it softens what pain has hardened and reopens places in the heart that disappointment tried to close. It prevents us from being consumed by the very wounds we've suffered. Choosing love when it is hardest protects us from becoming the same as the hurt we experience. It ensures that pain does not dictate our identity or our future. This kind of love also sharpens our character. Anyone can be kind when people are kind back. Anyone can show compassion when surrounded by those who affirm and appreciate them. But when kindness is extended to those who show no gratitude, when patience is offered to those who seem unchanging, when forgiveness is given again and again despite repeated wounds, this reveals the strength of who we truly are. Love in easy places is pleasant, but love in hard places is proof of maturity. It shows that our choices are not controlled by fleeting emotions, but anchored in deeper convictions. Beyond strengthening us personally, loving in hard places also shapes how we see others. When we make the decision to extend grace to those who frustrate us, we begin to view them differently. Instead of only seeing their failures, we start to recognize their humanity. We see that they too are broken, struggling, or trapped in their own battles. Love broadens our perspective, teaching us to look beyond actions to potential, beyond offense to possibility. This shift not only changes our relationships, but also deepens our empathy for people in general. There is also a freedom that comes with loving in difficult moments. Carrying anger, resentment, and offense is like carrying chains that weigh us down every step we take. But when we choose to love, those chains break. We release ourselves from being defined by what was done to us and step into the freedom of becoming who we are meant to be. Love does not guarantee that others will change, but it guarantees that we will. It transforms our hearts, enlarges our spirit, and prepares us to walk through life with a strength and peace that resentment can never offer. When love feels impossible, it is often because we are looking at the situation through the lens of our own strength. We measure our patience, our tolerance, and our emotional reserves, and we find them empty. We replay the pain, we feel the weight of betrayal, and we hear the voice inside whispering, "You can't do this anymore." And in truth, that voice is not wrong. On our own, we cannot. Human willpower has its limits, and emotions fluctuate too much to sustain lasting love in the face of hardship. That is why the key is not to depend solely on what we can muster, but to draw from a source beyond ourselves. When you realize that you are not the well but the vessel, everything changes. A well can run dry, but a vessel that stays connected to a flowing river will always be filled. Love works the same way. If you keep trying to generate it on your own, eventually you will collapse under the weight of exhaustion. But if you learn to lean on the one who is love itself, you discover a strength that doesn't run out when the road gets hard. That strength is not found in your feelings, but in surrendering those feelings and allowing something greater to sustain you. This is why some people are able to keep forgiving when they've been wronged, why they can keep serving when others take advantage, why they can hold on to hope when disappointment lingers. It's not because they are naturally stronger or more tolerant than everyone else. It's because they've learned to draw strength from a source that doesn't dry up. They recognize that love is not about perfection in the other person, but about faithfulness in themselves, empowered by something bigger than their hurt. Depending on that strength doesn't mean ignoring your pain or pretending the struggle isn't real. It means acknowledging the reality of your feelings while refusing to let them control your choices. It means saying, yes, I feel broken, I feel weak, I feel like giving up, but I will not let those feelings dictate my response. I will lean on strength that is greater than my weakness. That choice opens the door to possibilities you never thought you had. Where bitterness once seemed inevitable, forgiveness becomes possible. Where walls once felt necessary, bridges start to be built. Where despair once loomed, hope begins to take root again. Relying on that deeper strength also brings peace in the midst of conflict. When you no longer have to carry the burden of manufacturing love on your own, the pressure lifts. You stop striving to keep yourself afloat and instead rest in the assurance that there is more available to you than what you feel. That peace allows you to engage with others differently, not from a place of desperation or resentment, but from a place of security. You no longer love because you have to, you love because you've been equipped to. And in that exchange, you discover that what once felt impossible has now become the very thing that strengthens and frees you. The greatest test of love does not appear when life is comfortable, when relationships are smooth, or when people are kind and appreciative. Anyone can love under those conditions because love then costs nothing. The true test comes when love asks for sacrifice, when it requires us to give without receiving, when it calls us to extend grace to someone who has not earned it. It is in these difficult, costly places that the depth of our love is revealed. Words of affection may be easy to say, but when those words demand action in the face of pain or rejection, that is when love proves whether it is genuine or shallow. Costly love shows itself in many ways. It shows up when a spouse chooses to remain faithful and patient even during a season of misunderstanding and distance. It appears when a parent continues to guide and support a rebellious child, refusing to abandon them even when their heart aches from disappointment. It reveals itself when someone chooses to forgive a betrayal rather than let bitterness harden their heart forever. These moments may not feel rewarding in the present, but they carry a weight and a power that surpass comfort. They show that love is not bound to circumstances but anchored in commitment. Rejected love is perhaps one of the hardest tests of all. To love someone who does not love you back, to care for someone who pushes you away, to offer kindness in the face of indifference. These experiences cut deeply, yet they are also the very places where love becomes most powerful. Because love that endures rejection is not built on approval or applause. It is built on conviction, on the belief that love is worth giving even when it is not acknowledged. Rejected love teaches us that the value of love is not measured by how it is received, but by the purity of the choice to give it. The difficulty of these moments is undeniable, and yet they carry within them opportunities for profound growth. Love in easy times does little to transform us, but love in hard times reshapes our character. It forces us to wrestle with our pride, to confront our selfishness, and to depend on strength greater than ourselves. Every costly act of love chisels away at the hardness in our hearts, making room for deeper compassion and broader understanding. Every rejected expression of love reminds us that love's worth is not in its return, but in its resilience. This kind of love does not promise immediate rewards. In fact, it may seem thankless at times, leaving us to wonder if it was worth the effort. But in the bigger picture, costly love leaves an imprint that nothing else can. It plants seeds that may take years to bloom, but when they do, they produce fruit that endures far longer than comfort ever could. It may not always change the person we love, but it always changes us. And it is in that transformation that we discover love's highest calling, not to make life easy, but to make life meaningful, deep, and eternally impactful. Love shines brightest when everything around it seems dark. It is easy to admire love in moments of harmony, but its true brilliance is revealed when it refuses to be extinguished by hardship. When we are mistreated, misunderstood, or pushed away, that is when love has its greatest opportunity to stand out. Anyone can return kindness for kindness, but when kindness is returned for cruelty, when patience is extended in the face of frustration, when forgiveness is given even though it is undeserved, that is when love rises above the ordinary and becomes extraordinary. The harder the situation, the brighter love appears because it contrasts so powerfully with what the world expects. Adversity often exposes the worst in people. Under pressure, tempers flare, grudges form, and relationships fracture. Yet adversity also creates the perfect stage for love to display its strength. It is in those moments of conflict that love reveals it is not a shallow feeling, but a deliberate power. Just as a candle's flame seems small in daylight, but lights up the entire room in darkness, love that is lived out in the middle of pain and struggle shines far beyond its size. Its glow brings warmth where coldness once lingered and clarity where confusion once reigned. Think about how many of the most powerful stories of transformation are born from acts of love shown in difficulty. Communities divided by hate have been healed when individuals chose love over vengeance. Families torn apart have been restored when someone had the courage to forgive instead of holding on to bitterness. Friendships have been saved when one person chose to overlook offense and extend grace. These examples are not common because the easy choice is always retaliation, withdrawal, or silence. But the rare choice, the choice to love anyway, becomes unforgettable because it carries the light of hope into the darkest spaces. The beauty of love shining in hardship is that it does not require perfection to be powerful. You don't have to have all the answers, Nor do you need to feel strong every moment. Simply showing up with love, even when you feel weary, is enough to make a difference. Small acts of compassion in moments of hostility, an encouraging word, a gentle response, a willingness to listen, can disarm anger and open doors to healing. These small lights, multiplied over time, create a fire that cannot be easily put out. What makes love shine brightest in hardship is not that it erases the pain or instantly fixes the situation, but that it proves love is stronger than the forces that try to snuff it out. Hate can be loud, bitterness can be heavy, rejection can be painful, but none of them have the power to dim the light of genuine love. That is why love in adversity is remembered long after the hardship has passed. It stands as a testimony that strength is not found in retaliation, but in resilience, not in taking control, but in surrendering to a greater way. And when people see love shine in the hardest places, it ignites a hope that perhaps they, too, can find the courage to love when it's hard. At the end of the day, love is not proven in moments of ease, but in moments of struggle. When it costs you something, when it stretches you beyond yourself, when it feels impossible, that is when love becomes most powerful. Choosing to love when it's hard may not change everything around you immediately, but it will always change you, and it will always shine a light that no darkness can put out.